What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of today's interview in the comment section below. If you're new around here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another Sit Down video. If you're listening to us currently on iTunes or Spotify, welcome in. I hope you enjoy the show. As always, please leave us a detailed review and a 5-star rating. What's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is episode 224 of the Sit Down. I am your host, Jeff Nadu. If you want more great crime content, please check us out on Instagram. We continue to climb up and over 200,000 followers. Make sure if you want crime news on a daily basis, you're checking us out on Instagram. Also, before we get to the interview, check out our sponsor. Football is coming, folks. And I know most of you love to wager on NFL, college football. College football starts on Saturday. We're just days away. And the best odds in the business are at Profit X. If you'd like to join Profit X, click the link in the pinned comment. One caveat to Profit X: it is a sports betting exchange. It is not a sports bookmaker. Therefore, in states like California, where sports betting is illegal, you can bet on Profit X, and it is legal. So make sure you go check out Profit X in the pinned comment. Get yourself a account as football starts. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into another crime topic. And one of my favorite things to do here on the Sit Down is interview interesting individuals from all over the criminal element, whether it's cops, whether it's FBI agents, whether it's mobsters or gangsters. We do it all here on the show. And I will say today, the guest that I'm about to interview, I have wanted to interview for a very long period of time. I just didn't know where to find him. Okay. He's not exactly out there. He is still an active cop. Okay. He's out there doing things. But I stumbled across him many years ago on a very interesting documentary that BBC put out. And I'd seen him on all sorts of other things. And I knew that he was an active police officer. I knew he was doing a lot in like plainclothes and SWAT and all these different units. And, being from the Philadelphia area, I've always had an interest in, the city of Philadelphia. It is one of the most dangerous cities to police in the United States, really the world at this point. And today's subject, we're going to find out more about his career, his life. His name is Bill Hunter. He's been a police officer, and I know he doesn't want to hear this, but about as long as I've been alive. Bill, you've been a police officer 34 years. You have seen it all. You come from Philadelphia. You are a Philadelphia man. You've had a very interesting career in life. You've been featured on documentaries. You've written a book, which I'm going to talk to you about. You've dealt with some of the worst people the Philadelphia's produced from a criminal element. I appreciate you coming on my show. I've really wanted to interview for you for a long period of time.
I'm glad to be here. Good to see you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. And how does that feel to hear that you've been a cop for 34 years? Is that concerning to you? Or
no, what's funny is that next month will be 34 complete. It's funny when you're in the academy, they tell you, hey, this is going to go quick, and you don't think about it then. And here I am 34 years later. I'm like, I look back and go, they were right. It kind of goes quick.
Where did all the time go, right?
Yeah, time goes fast when you're having fun.
Weirdly, I think we all look at our life like that. I was thinking just last night, it's been almost 20 years since I've been in high school. It's kind of crazy to me, but hey, as you said, time goes by when you're having fun. Bill, this is our first time speaking to you. We've done a few interviews, not many. You are still an active cop, right?
Yeah, I'm still active. Yeah. I'm what they call the drop program.
Okay, so you're kind of
on your 30 years. I entered the drop program, which is a 4-year program. My drop will end in June of next year, so I got about 9 months left in my drop. And the way it works is that would be my last day, but we're so shorthanded here in Philadelphia. They actually offered me an extra year, and I accepted it. So I'll see how long I stay after June.
So drop is essentially kind of it's when you're moving towards retirement and you're kind of do you do that, or how does that work?
Beneficial. What it is, DROP, Deferred Retirement Option Program. So what happens is when I got the 30 years, I froze my pension.
Okay.
So my pension's frozen, and I agreed I can only work 4 more years. And during them 4 years, you get regular pay, regular raises, whatever it is, we're getting regular. But on the side, they already opened an account for me. And every month since I entered the drop, they put a pension check in that account. So if I stay till June, there's going to be 48 pension checks in that account. If I stay past June, however many months, let's say I do the whole extra year, there'll be 60 pension checks in that account. And then they hand that over to you one lump when you walk away. It's actually pretty beneficial. Yeah.
So all you young people out there, being a cop is, if you've done it a long time, but it is quite a good career. I mean, it obviously has got its dangerous parts to it. It's, it's a hard thing to do, but when you get to a point, you can retire, you'll have a nice check coming in for the rest of your life. Your family will be taken care of. It's a good civil service, public job. But you, from what I know about you and from what I've heard, when you were growing up, and you're from Philadelphia, right? What corner are you?
Third generation city employee.
Oh,
my grandfather did 25 years in the fire department. My dad did 45, and with mine well over 100 years between the three of us.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So, what corner did you grow up on? Where are you from?
I was born right off 9th in Indiana, which is right there next to a cemetery. I guess it's a historical cemetery with Lucretia Mott and Robert Purvis, who were part of the Underground Railroad, and they dedicated that cemetery to them. I used to actually cut through that cemetery to go to my first grade school, which was St. Bonaventures. That's right at 9th and Somerset. I look back and, I don't remember the area being bad. I mean, you're a kid, what do you see when you're a kid? Then there came a point when I was in grade school, we moved to another area of the 25th district called Juniata Park. When I was in Juniata Park, I went to Holy Innocents, and it was probably 20 years later from when I moved, I came back as an officer. And I guess times had changed and the neighborhood had changed.
Yeah, you see these neighborhoods change. I mean, a lot of the neighborhoods in North Philly at one point were, Irish or German or whatever, and then they become a little different, different groups come in. The neighborhoods change. You, as a kid, you mentioned the civil service, that some of the people in your family. Did you always want to be a cop? Was that always your dream?
No, when I first got out of school, I'm one of 7 kids, and Dad couldn't afford. He was paid 7 high school tuitions. We went to St. Joe's Prep, North Catholic, Little Flower. So there's 7 tuitions there. So if we chose to go to college, we had to pay ourselves. So what I was doing is I was going to night school, working full time in a steel yard, and I worked in that steel yard for probably 9 years.
Wow.
I was only halfway done Temple. I went to Temple at night, and I was paying myself. So I'm working, I have a family, I'm paying a mortgage, and I'm coaching wrestling all at the same time back in the 80s. That was a pretty busy time for me. And it might be a little before your time, if you would remember, that in the 80s, the steel industry started to go under. A lot of them are moving overseas. I could see the writing on the wall. I was only halfway done with Temple. So I'm going, okay, I kind of panicked. My kids were little. So let me take some tests. I took all kinds of tests. I took, Roman Haas, the Bud Company, Coca-Cola, police, fire. I did everything. I did. It just so happened that the police department, they called me first. And I didn't think I was going to stay. I figured when I was done Temple, I'm going to move on. I was studying to be a gym teacher. I wanted to be a gym teacher / wrestling coach because that's what I was doing. And by the time I finished up, I was like, well, that was about 95. I finished up. I was already 4 years in. I'm thinking, hey, this job is kind of fun. I think I'm going to hang out for a little while. And here I am in 2025, about to retire within a year.
That's amazing. So when you went into like the requirements to get into the police department at that time, was it simply just signing up, going through the academy, obviously some physical tests, that sort of thing? There wasn't much to it though, right?
No, I mean, there was a test you had to take, then you came out on a list. And then once you're on the list, there's a background investigation. I had to take a polygraph. They do a neighbor search. I had to list all the places I lived at. They went and interviewed like neighbors. Hey, is this a good guy? And you go through that whole process. And, I got through that. Me and my brother took it together. My brother, Joe, we took it together. He just didn't make it through the process. Joe was lazy. So Joe probably didn't show up for something. That's it. But he's doing good. Joe's doing well.
Well, good. So when you were in the academy, did you ever say to yourself, I don't know if I want to do this, because being a cop's difficult, man, whether it's handling a gun or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, because I was older, I was in my late 20s, and I kind of knew it was a job. At that point, I'm looking at it as a job, and it was a big break from working in a steel yard, because the steel yard was pretty physical.
Yeah.
Working in the elements, I'm out there outside. I got hard hat, climbing on cranes, climbing up girders. I mean, I was pretty active. Then I'm sitting in a classroom for 5 months, and once or twice a week they take me into a gym, and I got to work out. I mean, you know what? To me, that was heaven. That was all
That's
right.
true. I guess, you don't think about it. I mean, being a steel worker, that's pretty tough, in a
Yeah,
yard or wherever. I guess that's true. It's pretty. Let me ask you, you mentioned like factories kind of leaving the city, right?
yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget about that. At least this generation, or even the one that I'm in, Philadelphia was a manufacturing hub. Trenton was as well. A lot of these cities were. We see, and you look at a place like Kensington. Kensington had a bunch of factories at one
Yeah.
point. And when we look at the history of these places, do you think there's a stark like connection to all those places leave, the people that lived in those neighborhoods move out, and we look at the day where Kensington is today? Do you think if those factories never left, do you think Kensington would be where it is today?
That's a great question. It's hard to answer that because the times have changed. I remember the factories open. I was telling someone recently that these corners where all these drugs are sold, I sold pretzels on them corners, and the reason I sold pretzels because there was a market for pretzels, and there were
Sure.
factories there. We would go up and down Allegheny Avenue. At B and Allegheny, there's a factory. There was you go down Erie Avenue, there's factories. We had a little wagon. We'd walk up and down, and you go to these different places. And that's how we made money as a kid. Mom, dad's working. You want some nice sneakers. You sold pretzels or you sold flowers. That's what you did.
Well,
Now,
and you sold pretzels and stuff because there were people on the avenue that were shopping. I saw a photo of, I think it was maybe late 70s of, I believe it was around Kensington, Somerset. It was, I mean, it looked like, it was like, it was people everywhere, people
everywhere.
shopping, stores were vibrant. But Bill, I've heard this before and I'll mention it to you. When all these factories left, do you know the one factory they left? The drug trade.
Oh yeah.
And it was very lucrative for a lot of people. And now we get to this point and we say, what happened here? Well,
Yeah.
that's what happened.
The drug laws have changed. We keep changing laws. What I say, and I don't mean to talk bad about anybody, but they change laws for the criminal, not for victims.
Yeah.
That's what seems to happen, and they just protect them more and more. Which, hey, you know what? I mean, it's our Constitution. I get it. It's like you just got to roll with the punches and figure out how to make it work.
100%. So you go through the academy, you kind of looking at it as this is a nice kind of getaway from the steel yard and that sort of thing. Eventually you get through the academy. Do you remember like your mile time or anything?
No, what I do remember is that the average age when I went through the academy, my class number was 296. I think right now they're up to like 415. Okay. But mine was
Wow.
296. The average age was probably about 22, 23. So I was one of the older guys, and a couple of guys would needle me about that. Now, at the time, I was not only coaching wrestling, I was still competing in wrestling tournaments. So my physical condition was pretty good. So when we got to the PT, I was no longer the old guy.
Yeah, you did what you
I
had
was,
to do.
I was the guy finishing number one in every single
You
event.
got respect then, right?
Yeah.
Well, good. So you get out. Is it true that they literally come to you and say, where do you want to go? Is that how it works?
There came a point where I had to transition from a Glock to I had worked with the transit police for a little bit. So I came right back to the academy because now I'm going to get assigned to a district. And at the time, I had went through with a revolver, and we had transitioned to Glock. So I had to go through the Glock training, which was no problem. So I go through the Glock training, and now I'm just waiting to be transferred. And I remember it was a sergeant. He looked at me and said, "So you're going to be assigned real soon. Do you have any preference where you'd like to go?" And at the time, the busiest district in the city was the one I grew up in, the 25th. So I said, "Well, I'd really like to go to the 25th district." And I still remember he looked at me and gave me this smirk and started laughing. And he said, "That might not be a hard call." So the very next day, my orders came across, and I was in the 25th district.
And for anyone that's not from this general vicinity, maybe you're from the Midwest or the West Coast, 25th district is, the Badlands, Kensington. I mean, in the 90s, even when you got into the force,
Yeah.
a very dangerous
I
town.
was at that time. At that time, it was the busiest district in the city for drugs, shootings, and homicides. I think over the past 25, 30, 20 years, maybe, it has shifted a little bit.
Yep.
And I would say right now, the 24th district is probably the busiest. And, I mean, I figured out why, and we'll talk about that, but, you know, it has shifted from the 25th to the 24th.
I want to ask you with the transit, the transit system. You were a cop there. There are two major lines in Philadelphia: Broad Street line and the Market Frankfurt, which goes up into the Northeast. What kind of things are you doing there? Are you just kind of simply walking through? Like, are you hassling, telling people homeless to get out? Like, what are you doing?
I was assigned to the North Broad Street, which was at the time what they called Zone 7. I wasn't there really very long, but I was in North Philly, and you do the same thing any other footbeat, whether you work a district or you're just walking a footbeat. You're helping people. If there's crime, you deal with it. I've had a couple good arrests there. What they had a lot in the subway when I was working there was a lot of robberies. Maybe a woman might get her earring snatched or a chain snatched off her neck, and if you're close, it's off to the races. See if you can catch them.
You mentioned North Philly. Did you ever? I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when there was that Amtrak stop in North Philly? Do you remember that?
There's one
like Glenwood.
Yeah, right at Glenwood.
Yeah,
exactly that's right across from Joe Frazier's gym.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Joe. So Joe is obviously a Philadelphia product. Did you ever meet Joe Frazier?
Yeah, he was the neighborhood hero. I mean, when you live, my address was 3017 Percy, which anyone over there, that's on right off in Indiana, in Germantown, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, you could walk down the Glenwood Avenue and then the Broad, which is only about 3 blocks away. And that's where Mr. Frazier's gym was. And that's where you would go on Saturday mornings. And on Saturday mornings, you could sit at a table, donuts, juice, whatever you wanted, and watch fights. And he was always there. But, in that era, for us to see a man like that, that's a legend. And you look up to guys like that. I think one thing that's missing in them neighborhoods now is something like that. They don't have that today. They don't have the people they're looking up to are the people driving the Maseratis who are getting that from selling drugs.
Yeah, I think that's, I think and you've done a really great job in your career trying to motivate young people, right, to stay away from that. And you hit the nail on the head. The biggest issue in America's cities today is the lack of men, leaders, right? We don't really have like a basketball coach used to be like an important part of a neighborhood, right? Or a boxing guy or like someone. And it's a shame because nowadays people just kind of move and, that's that.
Yeah, I was a wrestling coach. And my wrestling coach meant a lot to me. And
this is you, right, as a wrestling coach?
Yes, that's Joshua. Joshua lived at K&A, the kid with me right there. Joshua wound up getting an academic scholarship to Villanova.
How about that?
Yeah, and graduated. He's down
That's amazing.
Getting married in March. Now, the funny thing is, when he got the academic scholarship to Villanova, his mother, she's Dominican. He's Dominican. And he literally was a block away from K&A. She said that she didn't speak any English, but she asked me, what did this mean? I told her that he just hit the $1 million lottery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. And you think about that. I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows what happens if you don't come into or you put him into something or you change, you never know what you could truly do for one person. You got to get.
He was a very intelligent kid. And
Bill, there's a lot of smart kids in prison.
Absolutely. And this is my point. It didn't matter what he did in life. Whatever he was going to do, he's going to rise to the top. And
okay.
I see a lot of these is like I think I might talk about it in my book. Any 16-year-old kid who's out there hustling, making $2,000 and $3,000 a day, you're not going to tell me they're stupid.
No,
damn smart for a 16-year-old kid. They're just making bad choices because they're thinking like a 16-year-old kid. That's the difference. Now Josh, there's been quite a few other ones. I actually coached wrestling in this area for over 30 years. And there's just some great kids. Of course, there's a couple who went the wrong way on me. But if I was to calculate wins and losses, my wins are a lot higher than my losses.
You're Eddie Alvarez is a product of yours, a UFC legend, Eddie Alvarez.
Real proud of Eddie. Eddie's done such a great job. Very humble. If you ever heard Eddie talk, very humble kid. I mean, You know what? Of all the accolades, he's won 3 different world championships, 3 different divisions, UFC world champion, has his own gym now. And one thing I can't say enough about Eddie, coming from an area like where that he's another one block off K&A. He is just a tremendous father and husband. And what more could I say?
And when you look at Eddie Alvarez's like career, he fought Dustin Poirier twice, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Anthony Pettis, Michael Chandler. I mean, he fought everybody. I mean, all the major guys. That's a long and storied career. And when you see something and someone like that from the neighborhood, you knew him. You know, that's definitely very.
I remember Eddie. I was at a banquet recently where Eddie was one of the speakers. We hang out a lot together. And he brought something up that I forgot that I told him. So I had him wrestling on my grade school program because I ran a grade school program into the high school. So he's an athlete. Eddie's just a great athlete. Anything he'd done, he'd have been good at. So he told me that he was thinking about playing basketball right around his freshman year. And I looked at him real calmly and I said, Eddie, how are you going to play basketball with 2 broken legs? He said, okay, coach, I think I'm going to wrestle. So we still laugh about that moment.
I mean, it's a good point, actually. You know, that's a violent world, that, you know, wrestling, UFC. I mean, I watched that. I mean, you watch it Saturday and it's like, it's amazing that people like that. You give those guys all the credit in the world, but we give people like you a lot of credit too. So you eventually go to the 25th district. I guess you're still pretty young though. Did you really say like, do I really want to be in one of the most violent districts on the East Coast? I mean, I did. Kind of a wild thing.
I did. I wanted to be there. That is where I wanted to go. And I never regretted a minute there. As I look back over my career, that is absolutely one of the best places I ever worked at, was in the 25th district. You know, I employ the district cops in Philadelphia. I'm in court every day. And when I see these district cops in court every single day, that tells me that not only are they answering radio calls, doing auto accidents, taking whatever the reports they got to take, they're out there locking up bad guys. So that tells me that they're really active. When you're in a special unit, you're assigned just to do that, where you don't have to answer them radio calls. You don't have to take them auto accidents. These district guys are out there. I see them in court every day, and I applaud what they're doing. I think they're doing a great job.
How long were you responding, like as like I guess you would just call it like just an officer answering calls? How long did you do that for?
I would guess probably about 4 or 5 years.
So you were into the late. You started in like what, mid-90s?
I got on in 91.
Okay, early 90s.
I was probably doing patrol to about 96, 97, and then actually 96 is when I got first detail out of the department. I was detailed to the Georgia State Police and the Atlanta, Georgia for the Olympic Games. I worked the games in 96.
Now, what did you do? What did you do in that? Like you were just like crowd control, that sort of thing?
Now, we were with the athletes. What it was I took a class with the FBI, and it was to get my certification, teaching certification in self-defense. And I met people when I was there, you know, and it was a physical thing. We ran every day, worked out every day, did a lot of grappling, a lot of throwing around. And the funny thing was, the first day I was there, I guess almost a month. The first day I was there, when you're putting your hands on somebody and you're grappling with people, they pulled me aside right away and said, "What's your background?" And they realized I was, you know, a pretty successful wrestler and coach. So when the games came along in 95, they contacted me and they said, "Listen, there's these openings for law enforcement, and you would be assigned with the athletes and helping people down there. But, you know, they like that if you look like an athlete and speak more than one language." So I applied and I got it. I was down there for the whole summer. The whole summer I was down there. When I came back, what I started doing what they call BD work, burglary detail. Don't mean you work in burglaries. What it basically meant was you're in plain clothes working the district, and, you know, you're out there responding to a high level crime, and you don't have to answer the calls for auto accidents or domestic disturbances and stuff like that, where you're strictly focusing on part 1 crimes. From there is when I started working narcotics. You know, I was working narcotics from East Division. which is 24, 25, 26. East Narcotic Task Force with Joe Bologna, which was a great time in my career. Then Joe got promoted. Keith Sadler got promoted, and they disbanded the unit. And then I got put in what's called a NETS team, Narcotic Enforcement Team. That's what the NET stands for. Working the 25th District. Back where I am. I'm back home again. Loved it there. So when I'm in the 25th District, my sergeant then, Mikey Bloom, he asked me, he told me, he said, Bill, you know, you'd be a great fit for SWAT. And I said, I don't know. And he said, no, really, you would. So I practice up on my shooting. You know, I want to get my proficiency up to par, above par probably. And but the way it worked is that they take a group of guys, you take the shoot, and you have to shoot a 95 or better. I was there with like 9 guys. I was the only one to get a 95. And I got a 95 right on the nose. It wasn't above it, 95. The sergeant said, hey, good luck next time, guys. You got a 3-month wait to try it again. He says to me, all right, you got to do it again. Not to mush you. He goes, but no one's ever failed the second time. And I went, oh, man, because I just got by. But the second time, I did a 96 the second time. But then that's how I got the SWAT. And SWAT was fun.
So you quickly went to all these different units. I heard a name you mentioned. You mentioned Keith Sadler. Keith Sadler was the police chief in I live in Lancaster.
I love
Keith. Yeah, he was the police chief here for a while. So I want to talk about narcotics. So we talk a lot about drug dealers on this channel and that sort of thing, and like conducting these operations. How does that start, right? So how do you acquire a target?
You work your way up the ladder. I mean, if you're just working from street level without any intelligence, a lot of times they have things called proffers. When you're in the higher up units, let's say when I'm with the DEA or something, or you know, some other unit, the intelligence units, you find someone who got pulled over in a car and he got caught with all kinds of stuff.
You're just starting there.
Right. And you know what? Then you contact his attorney. You say, hey, do you want a proffer? Which means that you want to come and sit down with a couple investigators.
Yeah.
You can help yourself, or you just take your hit, you know, and that's how them guys get that going. At the street level, you just kind of start with the street level. It's not hard to find who's selling drugs. You can sit just about anywhere, and I can visually say that person's about to go by. You can just see it. You can tell what a street user looks like. And at the street level, that's how we would do it. At the higher up level, we do it the other way, where you would get someone who got locked up with a lot of drugs and they want to work off. They don't want to do the full time.
So you're what they call, from what I understand, an expert on narcotics. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do right now. I do the expert for the Commonwealth and for the state. I'm also certified to do it with the federal government, which I have testified for all 3. What I do is I go to the courts, I read the arrest, and I view the evidence, and I piece it all together, and I'll let them know. I'll let the district attorney, the assistant district attorney who is there, say, okay, listen, we have enough evidence. We can proceed with selling. Sometimes I'll look at them and go, there's no doubt in my mind they're selling, no doubt. However, based on the evidence you have, there's not enough to proceed.
Well, people think
it's easier for me to defend him than prosecute him.
And as you know, people think like, oh, that's a slam dunk case. Yeah, maybe to your eye, but in a court of law, it's a lot different as far as.
Yeah, I try to take the time. I always do it. If like today, I had some cases today where he had a decent amount of drugs. I mean, not a ton, but a decent amount. It was on a car stop. Maybe 25 bags of weed and 25 crack. You know, a little doses, street level size. But I said, when a car stop, all I have is that. There's no interrupted sale. There's no scale. There's no packaging. There's no money. Like, I was like, good job. You did a good job. And it's not personal, but there's not enough for me to get up there and try to prosecute this, because I want the evidence right. You know, if I say it this way, if he gets off and never does it again, this was his break. Good for him. But odds are, certainly going to get caught again.
Right. And you've been out there long enough where you see the same people over and over and over again. I see it in like with like the mob, even today, like you see the same guys been around 80, 50, 60 years. They're not going to go get jobs at some restaurant or
Right.
Kmart or something. Like this is what they know. Okay. So one thing I had a question on with like plainclothes, and I've never understood this. When you work plainclothes, isn't it quite quick that like the people in the neighborhood like just realize you're a cop? Like how do you
Well,
blend in? Because like I feel like
I knew how to blend in. I had, let's say, I have a gas company outfit, a water company outfit, a UPS outfit. Okay, and I utilized them. I would wear a hard hat. I would walk around with a clipboard and a tape measure on my head. I mean, I did some really crazy, funny things. I'll tell you one of them I did, like you said, plain clothes. So I was working with Ralph, one of my partners, and we were in intelligence. And we knew this guy was wanted for murder. And we kept hearing he was in his mom's house, but we didn't have a warrant to go in the house. So we're sitting on the house, we don't see them. And our sources say, I'm telling you, stay in there. So I come up with this idea. I say to Ralph, all right, I got my UPS outfit on. I got a box in my hand. I got people hiding behind bushes. I knock on the door and mom answers the door. So I look like a UPS guy. And I say to her, I got a package for, and I read the guy's name. She says to me, oh, I'll take that. I said, oh, wait a minute. I go, oh, sorry, ma'am. It says he has to sign for it. She goes, well, he's not here. I said, okay, no problem. I'll take it back. And she goes, wait. She goes, wait. So I'm standing at the door holding this box in my hand. And she looks around like this way, that way. She walks in, and now I see him coming. He came down from the upstairs, and I can see him. Now, technically, at this point, I can go, okay, because I see him, all right? But you know what? I think up here. I'm not going to go into that area. I'm going to let him come to me at this point. So I'm standing there. He wanted for murder, too. So I'm standing there, and I'm holding this box. As he comes to the door, as he reaches out, I went like that and dropped the box. The box falls to the ground. He bends down to pick it up. So I grab him actually by the back of the neck and his pants, and I drug him out the door. So now I'm kind of struggling with him while other people are coming up. But I remember mom screaming. Mom was screaming, why the hell is he fighting the UPS guy? Right? So now when she realized who I really was, oh my God, mom was so mad, screaming at me. You can't do that. You can't do that. I'm like, well, yes, I can. But you know what? I utilized different outfits.
So you have to have some ingenuity. You have to think of
imagination. Imagine the documentary you talked about when I was with Louis Theroux. If you notice, I'm always wearing something, some kind of mechanic suit. Right.
Yeah, I noticed in there you had something. Your name was Pedro, I think, at one point. Like
could be Pedro, Stanley. I would shop at the used clothing store. I would go to this place on Aramingo Avenue, used clothing, and I would just look for cool names. Whatever cool name, I'd say, oh, let me get that one. I would wear them out there. And it's funny where people don't really recognize you. I mean, there comes a point where they realize I guess it was about 10 years ago, one of our officers, Eddie Davies, got shot. And when Eddie Davies got shot and I realized who it was, I was the one that locked him up before he went to jail. He had just gotten out from my arrest. And he wound up shooting Eddie up at like 5th and Ansbury. Eddie chased him down and he shot Eddie in the stomach. Eddie really never recovered from that. He was teaching at the academy for the past 10 years, and his health, he just never recovered. He just recently retired. But I remember he was selling drugs in the railroad tracks. And I walked down the railroad tracks and I had my little Pedro on, little hat on. And I remember walking right up to him and he asked me how many. And I looked at him and he said to me again, how many? At this point, I can't believe he didn't recognize me. Other people came in, and when we did lock him up, he said to me, I thought that was you, Hunter. I just didn't understand why you're wearing that shirt.
I guess you don't really think about it. You just do it. People. Yeah.
The only analogy I can think of is that, does an NFL running back worry about getting hurt every time he runs the ball? No. Just the ball. Just run the ball.
No, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
That guy, the UPS guy, what did he say when you finally got him?
No, he was pissed off. Oh, he was pretty pissed off. Yeah. But
did they ever say to you, like,
I was even madder.
Do they ever say like it is what it is? Like these people know the game, you know?
There's been a few people I locked up. Like we had locked someone up. We did a clever. I write about it in a book. The way we outsmarted this guy. He used to sell behind a fence, and we outsmarted him totally because if we couldn't get over the fence, and he would just walk away waving to us. The fence was 8 foot high, and it encompassed. If we got over that fence, it'd take us 10 minutes to get over it. But then I don't know where he's at. He disappears into the woodwork. Well, we let him disappear one day, and me and a guy named Tommy Clark, we actually got bolt cutters and cut the whole side of the fence, pulled it back over, and put a string there. So the next time we went up, okay, he's looking at us going like this, thinking I went like this and ripped back the gate, like the shower curtain. You know what I mean? Ripped it back, and he stood there. And we grabbed him. We're taking him in. He goes, "Man, that was clever. You guys got me on that one."
They're clever, but so are you.
Oh yeah, they're right. You got to think them out sometimes. There's no set way. You just got to think and say,
okay, yeah, you got to look outside of the box, right? Sure. Yeah. I want to talk about the Theroux stuff and kind of that experience because that has millions of views. That is, I mean, I noticed like anytime I talk about like Reds or something, like a lot of people have seen those clips. I want to ask you about it, but you know, obviously we talked about the Badlands, which this is an article years ago where they kind of highlighted it. Philadelphia actually complained recently to Google due to the fact that on the map it said Philadelphia Badlands, and they said that looked bad. It's a bad place. It's a place of crime and all sorts of things. You knew it well. People always ask, like when I do these like Philadelphia, Kensington, like what are the most profitable? What are the worst drug corners in Philadelphia, at least in that particular vicinity? Can you tell us?
Back when I first went to the 25th district, that was the bad. Right there, my old block, Percy Street, Hutchinson Street, and Lawrence Street, all 3,000 blocks, which would be right off Indiana. They were the busiest blocks, probably on the East Coast. We used to call it the Sam's Club. You didn't go there to buy a little bit. You went there to buy a lot because you just didn't buy 1 or 2 packets. Now, things have shifted over the years. I guess it was around 98, 99. They did a thing called Safe Streets here in Philadelphia, in which they shut blocks down, and you know it wasn't as accessible for buyers. So that's what changed the game a little bit. And what changed the game was the L. People, if they drove into the area and they lose their cars. So what happened? People would drive, they park somewhere along the Market Frankfurt line, get on the L and get off at Somerset or get off at Allegheny. And right there, as soon as they start doing that, that whole area became the busiest because now they don't have to walk all the way down to 9th Street. I mean, if they get off at Allegheny, they're walking a mile down to 9th Street, maybe 2 miles. But if they get off at Kensington, Allegheny, them first little streets, Potter Street, Weymouth Street, Custer Street, they're right there, Lippincott. They are so busy, so busy. I mean, the market there is unbelievable. If I was to say the busiest block, okay, it's probably a little bit of a toss-up between like 3100 Weymouth, 5th and Westmoreland. Now, 5th and Westmoreland's a little further down. They may be the most organized drug block I've seen. I mean, they're really good. They're really good.
When you say organized, like, what do you mean?
It's a business. It's a straight up business where they work shifts like we work shifts. You got your day work, you got your mid tour, and you got your night shift. And it's not like the guys out there selling, they're out there. There's a whole chain that happens. There's someone who's going to buy bulk. Let's say I buy 2 kilos. Okay. I have what's called a safe house. The safe house is where I'm going to package. Now, right now, there's an area in the city, well, I'll say it, it's Mayfair. Most of them are in Mayfair, where in Mayfair, you got a lot of Section 8 housing. So they'll rent this house out in Mayfair, and from the outside, it looks like a normal house. You don't have people banging on your door. You don't have people coming up in all the hours of the night. It's not what that house is used for. If we hit that house, we go in that house, what we're going to find is a table, bags, scales, and a chair. That's all that's in the house. There's nothing else in there because all day long, someone's in there packaging up drugs. That's called a safe house. And the person sitting at that table, their job's called a table job. Then you have somebody who's going to come when it's all ready and take it to the block. Now, the guy that takes it to a block, that's all his job is. He'll take the drugs to the block, he'll collect the money shift, and he'll bring it back to whoever he's working for. Now, the guys out there on the corner, they're the ones that do the hand-to-hand.
Now,
It's a straight up business.
let me ask you, from the time the individual purchases the 2 kilos to it's back on the street, how quick is that happening?
Within a couple of days.
Okay.
Easily.
Okay. Now you mentioned Weymouth, Custer, some of these little streets.
Yeah.
When it comes to like money, how much a week we talking here?
After everybody's paid, okay, you're talking everybody's got to get paid. All right. A good drug block's going to get you like $25,000-$30,000 a week.
After all expenses.
That's who the guy who runs it. Now,
just profit.
These little things come in what they call bundles. I guess the best way to explain it would be think of a case of beer. The normal case of beer has 24 to a case. Let's say I have a case of beer and I'm selling each can for $1, and I'm selling them for this guy over here. So when I get done selling them 24 cans, I'm going to have $24. But all I got to give him is 20 for go here. Now I'll go back to the bundles. Depends on how much it costs. Like let's say a pack of heroin is $10 or fentanyl. There's no more heroin. It's all fentanyl now. Let's say a pack of fentanyl is $10. There's probably going to be 14 in a bundle. Okay. Now I'm selling them 14. I got 140 from selling them. The guy I'm working for, I got to give him either 100 or 110. The other one goes to me. That's my pay for selling him. So if I sell, let's say I'm the street guy and I sell 15 bundles, 15 times 30. That's the math. That's what I'm making. That's what I'm making during that shift. But the guy, the packaging, the guy who's making all the money is the guy way up here. They're the ones making the money.
Yeah.
I actually testified last week, and I'm looking at the guy. He's 5'8". He's 105 pounds. They caught him with drugs. They have him in a sale, and I had explained why he's selling, and I did. I know I did a pretty good job explaining he's a seller. I said, but let me tell you this. I said, this guy, he's not out there selling for money. He's a user, and he can't afford his habit. And the analogy I said, that would be like a mother who can't afford Similac stealing Similac for her baby. Is she really a thief? Is this guy as culpable as the guy up here? He's not. But you know what? They'll get charged the same.
You mentioned in the Theroux documentary, you've talked about this even like in some things. You even kind of mentioned to me, the people that are making the money are you don't see them. They're not around. Some of them will get prosecuted. People like this will eventually get caught. He was very out there, and we'll talk about it at Reds in a second. But most of these people we'll never hear of. It's not like it's not like we see people like Joey Merlino, who at one point was in the streets. You know of these people. Yeah. The people that are running these blocks, we'll never see them.
No.
Where are they? Who are they?
A longer investigation will get them. There's some very good investigative units. They're the guys that the field unit does a great job. Our field unit.
I guess the question is, are there guys that will never be caught?
That's a good question. Are there
They're
guys
just so elusive and
guys that have not been caught yet? I'll put it that way. Never's a long time. I would say there's guys who haven't been caught yet.
So you're telling me there are people that are out there that have been elusive for decades?
Yes, no doubt.
Wow,
no doubt. When we did the railroad job, our investigation led us to the person who ran the block. These murders were going on, and when we realized who it was, we pulled his arrest record up, and he was running that block for 15 years. Not one arrest.
Wow. Even one, like you mentioned, one block can make 20, 30,000 a week. One block, that's good money. That's a lot of money.
That's a top guy making that. That's not including what the street guys are making.
But let's just talk about
money, not that much.
Right. But let's just say you are running a block and you're making, like, let's just even say 15, 20 grand a week. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Some of these guys have 4, 5, 6 blocks. Like that's, where are they living? Are they living in the city, or are they like?
I've done a lot of wiretaps, both state and federal. And when you do wiretap, you get to know everything about somebody. You really get inside their mind.
Yeah.
Because you hear in all their conversations, you know who their wife is, who their girlfriend is, who their second girlfriend is. You know their motives. You even know there was a guy we investigated once. He would get up every day and take his kids to private school. That's what he would do, take his kids to private school. You know everything about them. And that burned me out. I actually got burned out from doing wiretaps. We only had 2 Spanish speakers. I was one of them, and I was in that room every day. But that you get to know everything. I was the most important. Now, there are the investigations where you get to that guy up top. You're not going to get to it when you're out there, like visually on the street. You might see him out there, but you're never going to see his hand on anything.
Yeah, he's too smart, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about like kind of on screen we see this. Have you ever seen The Wire or?
No, I haven't. People ask me that.
Yeah, I urge you. I think maybe when you retire, take 2 weeks, sit down, and because you starkly remind me of, and I'm sure people that have seen The Wire, like you kind of have that feel of like the mayor knows who you are, like you're a top level cop. You kind of have a feel. There's a character, Jimmy McNulty, and you don't remind me of him per se personally, but like just the way he is as a cop, you seem like very with it. You get it. You understand things. I think you really need to watch it as a cop in a big city because it really, I think you realize how starkly similar it really is, which they portray on screen. So you mentioned to me, you actually had a hit put out on you at one point?
Yes. Actually, twice I had it in my career. Twice. The one was what I said, the railroad investigation we did. What happened was when you look at, like I said, how the shift changed where people were coming in on the L. So what they would do is they would get off at Somerset, and there's a little railroad. There's a railroad track. In fact, the bridge is in the movie Rocky. In the movie Rocky, the first Rocky, you got Rocky running across this little bridge in Kensington with about 50 kids running behind him.
I remember.
Crossing a railroad track. To your left is the Market Frankfurt line, and to your right, the other way, to your right and your left, this is where all the drugs are being sold. So what people started to do, because they would just get followed out, get stopped, and get locked up. They would go right down to the railroad track, walk down, and they would come up at a block, 2900 Mutter Street, maybe a 2-block walk, and it was a very profitable block. The drugs sold there was heroin, and their stamp was Bart Simpson. Stamps are stamps. That's how you like. Someone tried to ask me to explain stamps on drugs, and this is the best way I could explain it. Okay. Let's think of chicken soup. You got Progresso, Campbell's, Chunky, same soup, but different varieties, different textures. Okay. Well, let's say I like it real thick. Okay, I'm going to buy the Chunky soup. This guy likes it watered down. He's going to buy the Campbell's. Okay. Well, the drug users, they all talk. Okay. And this stamp on this block was Bart Simpson. Very, very profitable. People liked it. They were always there. And the powder cocaine was called black tape. So if you walked onto the block, I would say, all right, who's got the Bart Simpson? Who's got the black tape? So they used to walk down this railroad track and right up on the Mutter Street, get their drugs, walk back, get right back to the L. Easy peasy. But they were killing it. 2,900 Mutter Street was killing it. So during the fall of 2008, what happened was the guy who ran the block noticed that the clientele was kind of withering. Couldn't understand why. So he goes down to the railroad track and he's watching the people come up. And about a half block before they got to them, there was another block, which was Hope Street. They were, come on, up here. So now he was stealing their customers. So that's a no-no. Like these drug dealers, they'll wave to each other. Hey, how you doing? They'll hang out with each other afterwards. But I don't sell on my block. You don't sell on his block. It's just an unwritten law. And if you violate that, street justice will occur. So he yells down to them, yo, you got to stop that. They kind of gave him the finger. So his name was Mostro. His real name was Jose Ortiz, but everyone knew him as Mostro, which is a Spanish word for monster. Big guy. So what he does is one day he goes out, he gets his gun out, and as the guys are trying to wave people down, he lets off about 5 or 6 shots. Okay? Just a kind of a warning, like, yo, guys, you ain't supposed to do that. This is the unwritten law. So later on, what happens is one of Mostro's workers was found beaten to death behind a garage, right there off of Mutter Street. Nobody thought nothing about that because that's kind of common back there. I mean, there's dead bodies back there. People get killed. No big deal. We didn't know it at the time that it was one of Mostro's workers, and it was the guy on the other side who did it. So now Mostro's pretty pissed off. He's like, okay, these guys killed one of my guys. So the next time they're out there, he actually shoots at them but misses them. So now they go back to their boss and say, hey, listen, Mostro El Tiene Pistola, he's got the gun, and he shot at us. Sorry, sometimes it comes out in Spanish. So he shot at us. So he orders them, go up to that corner and kill him. Now, I found all what I'm going to tell you, I found out later. I didn't know while it was going on. So these two guys come up. Let's see. One was named Guayana, and the other was Menota. That was their street names. So they came walking up, and as they walk up, they're standing next to Mostro. One's got an AR-15, the other has a 9. And Mostro looks at him and says, "Yo, guys, you better put that away because they'll lock you up for that." And they looked at him and said, "No, this is for you." And he pulled out the AR, shot him in the head. They wound up finding parts of his hat, and they were still filled with stuff on top of a roof. That's how hard he hit him. And then there was a guy standing with him named Catano. Catano just was collateral damage. They had to kill him too. So now we got 2 dead bodies on Murder Street. These guys take off running. Okay. But they dropped their guns right there. We didn't know it at the time. They dropped them because they didn't want to call with them. So we respond, and there's Mostro and Catano. They're dead. I mean, Mostro's head's gone. It's actually off. So we're trying to figure out, and that's when we realized, okay, something's going on. There's some kind of drug war going on here. That's 3 bodies now we have right here at 20 murder. So they specifically assigned me and my partner to this homicide investigation. We were street guys. We both speak Spanish. We both grew up out there. We know the area. So I know people. I'm asking questions. So now we're really actively out there. About 2 or 3 days later, we're at Front in Indiana, which is around the corner, and we hear like 7 or 8 shots. So we come on running down to the shots. We jump out of our car, we're down to the shots, and these 3 guys are running out of the railroad tracks. The shots are this way, but they're over here in the railroad tracks. So I know all 3 of them. What's going on? I don't know. We heard shots. We're running. We go, okay, no problem. I talked to the one. I slip him my card. Yo, you hear anything? Give me a call. I never thought that was that big a deal. That wound up getting him shot. But anyway, down the street, there's another guy dead. Kano. Kano was laying on the ground, stabbed like 10, 15 times, shot in the back of the head. Like, wow. Like, okay, now we're up to 4 bodies. Like, oh, shit. So we know something's going on. Well, what we didn't know was the 3 that ran out of the railroad track, there was a 4th one in the railroad track. What they did was they ran down there and hid the gun they just killed this guy with. I didn't know that when we were talking to these 3, the guy who did the shooting was 5 feet behind us in the bush and sitting there with his 9. So, okay. So what happened was the guy I gave the card to, they were out drinking a couple of days later, partying, smoking, whatever they want to do. And one of the guys with him picks his jacket up, puts it on, and goes like this, and pulls out my card. And they look at it, and the boss's name was Miguel. And they're like, "Yo, Miguel, look what's in Fernando's pocket." And it was my card. So he knew that he was in trouble then. He just didn't know how much. Well, about 10 minutes later, he was found on Front Street, shot 4 times in the chest. So they take him to Temple, and we go there right away because we find out who it is. I'm like, oh, my God, I know him. So we go there. He's in a coma. He comes out of the coma like 3 or 4 days later, maybe a little longer, I forget. But he tells us what happened. He said, "Let me tell you," he goes, "I'm going to talk now." He said, "When you stopped us, he was in the bushes with the gun. You guys really, we're surprised you didn't see him down there." He goes, "They shot me because I had your card." He goes, he had certain words for them. I almost came out right now, but he had certain words for them. And he's like, okay. So they knew that he was cooperating with me. He was giving me information. So we're okay. So we knew who the guy was we wanted. It was Miguel. Miguel was the boss ordering these murders. So a few days go by, and his name was Francisco, was in the hospital. Next thing you know, there's another guy from that crowd. One of the guys who ran out with him was now shot in the hospital, but he's conscious. He's asking for me. So we go to the hospital, like, what's going on? He goes, all right, listen, you got to be careful. He goes, he knows that he was talking to you. He knows you know it's him. He goes, he just gave the 2 shooters that did the other job, he gave them a ball of heroin to shoot you. A ball of heroin at that time, you're talking 10, 15,000 if you break it down. So he goes, he's coming after you. He's going to shoot you. So we go, okay, so now we have to call our supervisors. We get Carlos Vega, the attorney involved, district attorney. All right, they're typing up warrants for this guy, Miguel. Okay, we know we want him now. Plus, we have the warrants for the 2 shooters. We know who they are now. We identified them. So they say to me, they go, listen, we want to put a guard on your house. We don't want you coming to work. Like, whoa, 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 no way. Listen, I'm not going to live like that. I said, you're not going to get me sitting at home and not doing anything. I said, they win if you do that. I said, you give me 24 hours and I guarantee you I'll have him. See, what we found out, other than the block he was selling on, he owned another block. And they got to survive, so they need money. So we go first with me and Ralph went to the block. As we turn a corner, there's the two shooters. They're standing right there on the corner. So we pull up, we jump out, we cuff them, we take them straight to homicide. They're getting charged for killing Mostro and Catano and Cano. So they got 3 bodies on them right there. We can't prove that they're the ones that beat the other one to death, but we do have witness statements saying that they're the ones that shot them. So we take them down there and we get down there. So now they're talking. These guys look cold as ice, but we got them at homicide. They were like babies. They were crying like babies. They said, listen, when you grabbed us, we each had a gun. We threw it under the car. We seen you first. That's what he tells me. We seen you first and we threw our guns on the cars. So we drove right back out there. The guns weren't there. Someone already picked them up. So now we got the warrant for the boss of the block, Miguel. So we go out there the next day and I'm out there with my lieutenant, a few other guys. And I'm going, he's going to come for his money. We're out there for over 10 hours. And my lieutenant's going, let's call it, Bill. We've been out here a long time. Let's call it. I'm going, Lieutenant, he's going to come for his money. This is how he survives. He comes for his money. So eventually, here he comes. He drove an Escalade, a white Escalade. I remember him driving down the block, and I said, that's him in the car. So when he got to a certain point, the guy who I was handing over his money handed over the money, and then we kind of boxed him in. I remember walking right up to the side of the car. I opened up the door. I looked at him and said, hey, Miguel, you looking for me? And you see the look on his face was like, oh, fuck. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what he said. We pull him out. Now, the 2 that did the murders, actually did the shootings, okay, they pled. They both got life, okay? The 3 bodies on them, premeditated. They gave us the whole story. They confessed to everything. They didn't fight it. When I realized they were really just bad drug users. They were doing it because they were bad drug users.
Right.
Now with this guy, fed their habit. Where Miguel was a little different. He wasn't on drugs. He wasn't on drugs at all. And
he just knew that was a good way for them to entice them.
Exactly. Now the trial with him, he was charged with the solicitation to kill a police officer, and our evidence was really strong. We had put 2 people in witness protection, and they were in witness protection, and we hid them away. And that trial drug on for a long time, and it got to the point where it had to go on. And he really had one of the best attorneys in Philadelphia. And even the attorney came up to me and said, I have a lot of respect for you, but he's paying me to represent him. I'm going to do it. I said, look, I don't take it personal. I understand it. It's okay. By the time it went to trial, he just pled out. He didn't even fight it. He pled out. I can't remember how many years he got. And that was in 2008. I know he's been locked up a long time. The irony is that he went to Greatersford, and he's been nothing but problems at Greatersford. And my cousin George was the warden at Greatersford. And when I mentioned his name, he goes, "Oh yeah, he's suing me. You don't like his conditions here." I was like, yeah, he's been nothing but trouble. I'm like, oh well, I'm the one that locked him up.
I mean, that's
a good job. That really went well. A little bit of lady luck on our side, and thank God Fernando didn't die. If he died, we would have never known. Him coming out of that coma and opening up, and then Monito was the other guy, means ponytail. Monito was the one who got shot in the stomach, who called for me right away. He's like, you got to watch out. He's coming after you next. So it was it went well. I mean, I remember we got for that job, we got a free meal, a plaque, and a day off. No, kind of meager, but hey, you know what?
I guess, right?
This is what we do. This is what we do.
I got 2 personal, like not necessarily personal, but like that job. How do you just, like, when your shift ends, how do you just go home?
I don't know.
Like, how do you lay down and go to sleep?
I guess it takes a certain mindset. You know what, this job never bothered me. I always joke around. I said, dealing with criminals is easy because they're criminals and you know what to expect from criminals. That's what they do. We're police officers and we deal with criminals. We do what we do. They do what they do. I find it harder dealing with officers sometimes. I mean, sometimes egos get in the way, and it's something, I feel like saying this sometimes if they complain about something like, you don't know what it's like to work in a steel yard for 8 or 9 years, with a hard hat on in 10-degree weather, and you're climbing girders, and, you're hanging on to something, and you're carrying this steel around. That's work.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing. I always looked upon it as fun. I think the best preparation I had wasn't, the academy taught me stuff, no doubt about that. The best preparation is just being from that area. I kind of understood things, and I still to this day, I don't take it personal. I just don't take it personal. It's, they commit crime, we lock them up.
You mentioned during the story about the hit put out on you, you mentioned there were two like pretty cold killers. Like they took out people pretty simply. It wasn't real difficult. I guess the question is, we hear a lot about, we've heard it for decades, this stop snitching, it's bad to be a rat, all this stuff. It's probably the biggest subject I deal with in like the mob genre, that rat word, it's always there. What percentage of people, when you get them in the box, what percentage flip?
That is a great question. I probably spent about 2 years specifically assigned to homicide, where we were like a street team for homicide. They would call me. They needed someone in East Division. They call me because I'm going to find them. Someone's going to tell me where they're at. So in that 2-year window, I probably was face to face with probably 24 murderers, and of the 24, maybe 1 or 2 had that cold look in their eye, even after they weren't cuffed. The other ones would say the other 22, they were just kids. They were absolutely just kids. I remember once it was a 14-year-old kid. He had a 357. It was on video. We go out to his house, and I see mom. I said, "Look, we got a warrant for him. I know he's only 14 or 15 years old." I said, listen, there's 2 ways you're going to visit him right now. You're either going to visit him in jail, or you're going to visit him in the cemetery, because the guy that he killed, I said, them people are coming after him next. So mom was like, "I don't know where he's at." I said, "Well, here's my number." About an hour later, my phone rang. It was mom. Mom said, "I asked the people in the neighborhood about you. And they said that I can trust you. Meet me here. I'm going to give them to you." And I drove there, and here this little kid, 15 years old, maybe 110 pounds, 5'2". I'm thinking to myself, this is the one that shot that 357. Are you kidding me? But that's what's out there. He wasn't. He was a kid. I talk to mom still today. To this day, I still talk to her, and that was in the late 90s. That was in the late 90s. I did that.
Whatever became of him?
He's still in jail. Mom's trying to get him out because he was a juvie. And I think at this point, probably he did 20-some years. He was a kid. And,
wow.
And you know what? Growing up in that culture is so different. People, if you're never in that culture, you might not understand it. It's the no snitches. Absolutely, that exists out there.
But how many of them are actually, when the rubber meets the road, how many of them are actually standing on business?
A small percentage. Once they know that they're caught, a small percentage. But some of them are. Some of them are. I had one where we had done the proffer. Okay, guy got caught with a lot of drugs, and he's on board. He wants to do this. He wants to work with us. He wants to work off his sentence because he's going to do about 10 years. And he's telling me, "Okay, yeah, I want to do it." Then we told him what we wanted him to do. And the person we wanted to get to is a very hard person to get to. And once I mentioned that person's name, which I won't say now because that person's still under investigation, okay, he looked at me and said, "Nope, I'll do my 10 years. I ain't going to do it." That's how that interview ended. And he went and did his time.
So there are some hardened people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not doing nothing.
He was 100% on board, knowing that instead of doing 10 years, he might do 3 or 4. And as soon as I told him what we needed him to do, clammed right up.
We're good.
His lawyer went, "I'll do my time. I'm not doing that."
Wow. Yeah. Do you think in a way that's probably how the streets ended up kind of crumbling? Those types of people don't really exist anymore.
Yeah, they do. Eventually, everybody goes down. There's a few people I could name, which I won't, that I know that they've just never been caught. They're very good at what they do. They're very good at what they do.
Fascinating. So obviously, you've had this storied career. I mean, you've been in plainclothes, you've been in SWAT, you've been in, major narcotics operations. You've been at the Olympics. You've done all these things. One of the things you've also done and people are fascinated by crime, true crime. We see a lot of these, cop specials or like the BBC, for instance. They come into Philadelphia. How did that all happen? You were on a show. It's called Law and Disorder in Philadelphia. It was essentially this guy Louis Theroux. He's kind of a documentary filmmaker. He goes to very interesting ways of life and walks of life, and kind of just shadows people. You've been on other things too.
Yeah.
How did that all kind of start?
Lewis was fun. When he came, he was supposed to come for like maybe 2 episodes. He wound up staying for like 6 or 7. He stayed longer than he wanted to because he was having a great time. I think one of the reasons they focused on this area, Kensington, because that's where the biggest crime was going on. And I guess they have 2 assets using me because 1, I grew up out there. I know everybody out there. I knew everybody. And 2, I'm fluent in Spanish, so I can speak Spanish out there with them. And it's always been an asset for me. Even when I did the show called Risk Takers when I was in SWAT, I was in uniform where we went to certain assignments. What would SWAT would go to? That was around 2003, 2004. Lewis was around 2008, maybe right around when the railroad murders. Lewis just missed when he left is when all the railroad murders took place.
Wow.
Yeah, he would have loved being around for that.
That would have been interesting. Yeah. What kind of guy was he? Was he kind of a jovial guy, or?
He was a nice guy. I actually tried to email him when I wrote my book because I do talk about some of the things in my book with Lewis. And at first it was kind of funny where Lewis he was kind of like condescending with people. And I was taking him into places where he would talk. And I basically said, wait a minute, I had to take him aside. I said, Lewis, listen. In all due respect, I said, these people are talking to you because they respect me. If you want to talk to them like that, I'll wait around the corner for you. And I guess he kind of read what I meant by that because it kind of toned it down a little bit because, he would ask them questions I thought were inappropriate. Like why do you do drugs every day? What makes you do that? And I was like, okay, and he would get in their face, like, don't be a tough guy. You want to ask him a question, ask him man to man or ask him man to woman.
Was it him that chose to wear the bulletproof vest?
He did. Oh yeah. That's like a level 4 one. That's like something I wear in SWAT. I liked him though. I did. I liked Lewis. He was fun.
Well, I think he had that kind of journalistic sense where he thinks he could just ask anyone anything, and these aren't real people. And it's like, well, yeah, they actually are, and like this is real shit. This isn't like a film. I'm actually going to play a quick clip from it. This is where. So what you were doing is you were telling Lewis, and you could tell Lewis gets very excited when you say he's the drug lord out here.
Yeah.
You were talking about this guy Reds, and what I'll do, guys, not only what will we talk about Bill's book, but I'm gonna put the link to that original episode. It's actually very interesting. It's about an hour long, very fascinating look into Philadelphia. Really, sadly, still kind of what it looks like today. But you were talking about a guy, Alexander Rivera, aka Reds. Reds is a Badlands guy, Lawrence in Indiana, 5th and Indy, that area. What was a drug lord, as you said. He ran multiple blocks. You mentioned you had known him since he was like younger, like a kid.
Yeah, he's got a brother.
Tell me about him a little bit.
Well, you know what? He's smart. He's not a dummy. He's no dummy. He's a great example that if he grew up in a different environment where he's smart, he could have done anything. But this is the culture that the funnel that's a better word for it. It's a funnel where if you want to get ahead and you want to make money, opportunities are limited. And that was the opportunity to choose. Now, I'm fortunate, I met all these kids through coaching wrestling, and I could go on and on. You mentioned Joshua and Eddie. There's probably 50 more I could talk about who grew up out here. I think I always talk about Timmy Murphy. Timmy Murphy's a financial advisor from Morgan Stanley. Bobby Dempsey. Bobby's like some kind of marketing executive, went to Duquesne University, lived in San Diego for 10 years. I mean, he's doing great. And Bobby was actually a juvenile delinquent when we first met him. And here he goes on to graduate Duquesne. He's a marketing executive right now. So, I mean, so
is it really just mindset? Like some people, like you talk about those guys that had success.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you think it truly is? Is it just willpower? I don't want to be that. Like, why does this person become this, and why does this person become that? They're both the same. They're both Spanish. They're both from the same area. They both grew up with the same, non-opportunity. I think that's one thing about this whole world. Like, one of the reasons I started this show is, why do people go? Why did I go my way? Why did my father go his way? Why did you go your way? And why did they go their way? Like, why is it the thing what is it that Reds, is it just money? Is that really what it is?
I think with Eddie, it was more guidance. Not just me, there were other coaches. Yeah, we really took him under our wing, and even with Joshua, guidance. With Alex, who Reds, maybe he didn't have guidance. And sometimes I'll describe that area like this. If I was to get a litter of 6 puppies, and I get 3 puppies and I actually train them right, I walk them, I coddle them with love, and I do things with them, and I get the other 3 and just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we deal with out there.
That's a great kind of way to look at it.
That's exactly the way I tell people. I mean, I don't mean to sound mean, and I don't mean to insult nobody, but if I was to describe it, that's exactly the best analogy I can come up with.
That's really well thought out. So one of the things about that documentary that was really kind of groundbreaking and fascinating is Theroux, and I'm guessing it wasn't just him that made this happen, but he was told, according to what he said, Reds would never speak to him on camera. And then surprisingly, he does. Now, I want to ask you, before I get into that, what was he the kind of jovial guy that he presents? Because he kind of seems like a likable guy. Like, he's this drug dealer, but he just kind of jokes around, has fun. What kind of guy was he? Like the guy you knew?
He was exactly the way he was on camera. Like you said, this jovial guy. I'll tell you what, though, there's a level of respect out there. Okay. Like, if someone ran on me, they would get mad at them for running on me. If I drove down the street and if I was on Reds' corner and someone threw something at me, Reds would deal with it. Like, he didn't want me there. He didn't want the attention. He would make sure he says hi to me, but he also knew if I ever caught him dirty, I'd lock him up. But he treated me with respect, and I kind of respected that. But that's a lot of the corners out there. There's a lot of corners like that out there where I could walk right up and they're not going to give me a problem. They're not going to kick me and they're not going to spit at me. They treat me a little bit differently. I mean, I was fair my entire career. And here I am 30 plus years later, and I look back and I treated people right. Even when they were criminals. Once they're locked up, okay, I'm going to treat them fair. I've had people where they're going to jail for a long time and they would ask me a simple question like, oh, can I kiss my mom goodbye? Sure, where's she at? Before I take him to the station, where's your mom at? Get mom out here. Give me a kiss. Once you give me a kiss, there's no reason I wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't I? It doesn't hurt to do that. But you know what? That's how people gain respect for you out there. It's like, it's not personal. I think I said it about 10 times. It's not personal.
No, it's not. Hunter, I got to tell you,
my attitude's a little different. I never took it personal.
I'm begging you. You've got to watch The Wire, man. Everything you say, it's amazing how, like that McNulty guy, he would do the same thing. It's pretty amazing how similar you are. So with Reds, how did that interview happen? Did he really just kind of walk up and say, "Hey"?
No. I told him. I said, "Look, anything you say, this has nothing to do with getting an arrest. What Louis made people do is before he spoke to them, he would let them sign a piece of paper, and Louis is telling them, listen, this is not going to be used against you. Okay, this is just me doing a documentary, and this is giving me the permission to do it." And you know what? I think that in their mind, like, okay, this is legit, because everybody he interviews in that documentary signed a piece of paper. Everybody.
Okay, so with Reds, it was really just it was kind of just about his life. He wasn't going to say anything incriminating, anything like that.
He had the horses running around.
Yep. He had animals.
Yeah.
But you would agree though that wasn't the reason he was ultimately arrested and prison.
No, he was under investigation at that time. I knew he was under investigation. Like I know
he just kind of knew he was going to have a couple years in the sun where he was going to make money. He kind of had to know that, like, driving around in an Escalade with a $25,000 chain on, like, eventually it was going to all end. But most guys aren't like that.
They don't look upon long term. They don't. I've actually talked to kids already out there who are young, and sadly to say, I've heard some of the young kids say to me, "I don't intend on living that long anyway, so I'm living it up now." That's
right.
what sadly, but that's what they're saying to me.
They don't think they're going to make 2025.
Right.
So.
They don't feel they're going to make it. So they're living it up now.
I want to talk about your book, but I want to kind of put a bow on your career and kind of even your time in those days. Reds is still around. He's still in prison. He was recently given a commutation in the Joe Biden administration. He is going to get out at some point. He was given life originally.
Yeah, he was.
For drug crimes in federal prison. It's been what? I mean, over probably 15 years since he's been in prison.
At least.
You said he's a smart guy. He's obviously much older than he was, when you knew him. An interview with you two would be very interesting. Maybe someday you get that.
I wouldn't mind talking to Alex. We could set that up, Jeff.
I would love to. I mean, if whenever he gets out, I will say I will pay you both. I can't pay you crazy amounts, but I would love to see that happen. I've gotten so many views of, like, people find him very interesting. So obviously, we're in 2025. When you started this career, even back when you were dealing with someone like Reds, the city's changed a lot. I lived in the city. I remember kind of how it was around like 2010. It was still a place where you could go to West Philly, not have a problem. You could go to the north, not have a problem. Now it's a lot different. These kids today are a significantly different breed. The ethical way of, like you mentioned, if something were to happen, they would deal with you. Like, they were going to give you respect. Nowadays, it's a lot different. How much different is it out there truly in the streets?
Well, there's still great places in Philadelphia. I love Philadelphia. I'm Philadelphia born, raised, third generation. There's still great places in Philadelphia, but a lot of the places, like, when I went from 9th in Indiana to Juniata is not much different than 9th in Indiana now. It's just the city's changing. I don't know. If I was to say what's the biggest problem in these areas, it's simply the word parenting. People bring children into this world and literally do nothing with them. That's why I use the analogy of the 6 puppies. They literally do nothing with them. And what winds up happening is the streets raise them, and the streets can be a mean place. You're making your own decisions from 10 years old on. I go speak at grade school sometimes, and they're so innocent and nice at that age. So innocent and nice. Now, I'm still involved with high school wrestling, and I go to both Catholic and public schools, and some of the schools I go to, I'm like, oh my God, these kids are so bad. I'm like, what? I said to the one, I went to school once, I said, when did you lose control? I said to the guy in the hallway, like, wow, I can't believe what's going on here. And I wasn't there as an officer. I was there as either a wrestling coach or a wrestling official. I officiate high school wrestling too. I'm a busy guy. I keep busy.
Yeah, you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
You also do real quick. You do like Eagles games, things like that.
Yeah. Well, when SWAT, I'm still part of what's called the SWAT reserve team. When I went to SWAT, and if I started a roll call with SWAT, we probably had 12 guys at roll call. I know they don't have that. Not even half that right now. Everybody's short-handed. So what we started, I guess about 10, 12 years ago, was they call the SWAT reserve team. So it's guys who are still on the job, who were in SWAT, already SWAT trained. We go back twice a year. We qualify with all the weapons. So when things happen and they're short-handed, they can, hey, let's give him a call. That's why I seen you at the game the one time. SWAT has a contract with the NFL where they're going to have 2 long guns at each entrance. Catwalk's going to be monitored, and they might not have enough people on a Sunday afternoon.
Is that strictly for in the case of a major event, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
well, not just that. Let's say they're doing a warrant tomorrow morning, and it's a homicide warrant. You need front containment, you need rear containment, first floor entry team, second floor entry team. If it's a 3rd story, you need a 3rd floor entry team. You also need one hospital car. There's always going to be a car, one of the cars out front, left running with somebody in it. So if something happens, boom, he's going to the hospital. He's already got the hospital room.
Well, now in terms of Eagles games, though, is like if there's like a simple like fight or something, like you're not going to deal with that. You're dealing with like if there were to be a major event at a game, like okay.
That's exactly why I'm there.
Okay.
And we don't deal with the crowds. If there's a major event that goes on at the game, we're going to handle it. But for any kind of like fights, the blue uniforms will handle it. I call them the blue uniforms.
Yeah, they're just like the people
Patrol
there.
guys. Yeah.
Okay. Got you. Yeah, so you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. I like I told you, I ran into you. It was I think it was a Monday night game. I just happened to see you,
Yeah.
and you're a pretty familiar face. So, yeah, what a wildly interesting career. You wrote a book, which kind of goes in a little bit to the media things that you've been doing. I have it. I recently got it. It's called Surviving the Badlands. You're self-published. It was something that you kind of told me you had always wanted to do. And I guess I'll kind of couple this with my final question. You wrote a book. You've done all this stuff. You're still fairly young, right? How old are you?
Believe it or not, I know it's funny now. I train every day. I'm goofy. I train every single
pretty
day.
young now.
Yeah, I'm 63.
Okay, you have a lot of time left. You're
Yeah,
winding down your career, but you've already done so much.
Healthy. I eat right. I train. I don't abuse myself. I joke with people. I said, there's only 3 liquids I consume. I consume water, coffee, and light beer. There's nothing else I'm going to drink. I don't care what it is.
No, listen, I lost 150 pounds a couple of years ago. Someone said to me, like, how'd you do it? And one of the big things was I stopped drinking certain things. Okay.
Yeah.
These juices and sodas and all this stuff, it's such a bad, they're so bad for you. And they're just empty calories. I mean, and you're adding that on to what you're already eating, which is bad. It's like people wonder, how do they gain? Yeah, right. So I guess the question is, like, what's next?
I got a couple of things lined up. I'll tell you right now, I really enjoy what I'm doing for the courts. The narcotics expert. I wouldn't mind continuing doing that, whether it be on this side or that side, whatever one I think is right. If I think that the defense is right, I'll help the defense. If I think the Commonwealth, I'll help the guy. It doesn't matter. I can look into a case, and I honestly can tell you whether it's strong enough to go forward. And I had one of the young DAs say to me today, I explained to him, this guy's selling, but you don't have enough. And I think you should go ahead with just possession. And he said to me, Bill, your word is gospel. If that's what you say, that's what we're going to go with. Now, that's one avenue which I'm thinking about. The other one is I've been working with the schools here in Philadelphia, and Catholic and public schools. And both of them are going to be implementing classes for seniors, people who want to go into the law enforcement field. And what the curriculum will be, it will mirror the police academy. So they're going to have the same classes that are taught at the police academy, the diversity classes, the law classes. I'll explain units. And I'm kind of going to get involved in that. I'm excited about that. I want to help both the Catholic and public schools. I think it would, 1, bridge a gap between teens and law enforcement. And 2, I think we're going to get more people wanting to be officers.
I think so too. The stigmas and all that kind of stuff. It's a hard job, right? But it's a rewarding job. I give you a lot of credit for being really a gleaming light. It's a hard job. It's very much in the news today, but you've done so many different things. You've helped young people. And I think you're not going to have any shortage of problems finding whatever you want to do after this. Throw in the fact of, like, what you talked about, like, you have so much knowledge and intelligence in, like, crime and drugs and that sort of thing. I want to call on our people that watch and listen to the show. Bill does a really good job in this book of like describing his childhood, the places.
That's exactly right. You know, it's funny. I wasn't an angel. Okay, yeah. I wasn't an angel. I was your normal teen. We did things. You know, I talk about one of the things I did in this book as a teenager. And do you golf? Okay, do you golf? Do you ever golf?
I don't per se, but I know a good amount about it.
So when I was living in Juniata, one of my friends lived on top of a bar restaurant, and they shared the basement with the bar restaurant. Next to the walking box was his washer and dryer. So they were always down there. So at Juniata Golf Course, the 17th hole, you tee off here and the green's up here. So when I hit that ball, if it goes on the green, I just know it went on the green. So what we used to do is we used to go to the basement of the bar restaurant. This is a teenager. And we used to get cases of beer. And we go sit at the top of the hill where the green was. And one of us would lay down on the green and wait. And if they hit the ball under the green, we would crawl across, get the ball, and put it in the hole. And the other guys would stand up there clapping. So the guy's looking down the hill and they see these young guys clapping. Okay. When he got to the top of the hill, the ball's in the hole. He thinks he got a hole in one. and we'd sell them beer. I mean, we really did okay with that. That was a fun.
I mean, that's a pretty good idea. You're full of ingenuity, Bill. I got to give you a lot of credit for that. So I want all of our people, whether you're Philly guy, New York guy, I think Bill will really kind of resonate with you. This is a really good self-published book. And look, Bill's had quite the career. He didn't really even talk about some of the, didn't go that, totally deep in some of the wiretaps and all the different stories, the time he had with Louis Theroux, the risk takers, all the stuff he's done. I'm going to include the link to the book. Go out Amazon, wherever, get the book, show some love to our friend Bill Hunter. Bill, you actually made a comment to me that one of the subjects that I covered on this channel, you arrested one.
The Birdman.
Kid Ronald Bird, he was a part of that dirty block.
You start talking about the dirty block, I start laughing. I'm going, it's 1300 Williams Street.
So dirty block, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's
3 blocks where I was born.
Yeah, it's not far. It's what, 13th Cambria, 12th Cambria.
13th in Indiana, 13th Cambria. Yeah.
I got there's actually a map now. There are so many different sets and groups and different people in Philadelphia. It's fascinating. But Dirty Block, they were a part of that dime thing. They stole like 200 allegedly all those dimes. You heard about that?
In different parts of the city are sold differently. Okay. Where let's say Northwest is a little different than the way it's sold in South Philly. South Philly is mostly delivery. You call, tell them what you want, and they bring it to you.
Okay.
If they catch the guy selling, he usually only has what he has on him. So I stop you. You got 3 bags of powder on you. Do I look like a drug dealer? No. I'm on my way to deliver them 3 bags somewhere. But in where I'm talking, Kensington is well organized.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to a store. Exactly what it's like going to a store.
Well, I will say this, Bill, and I'll talk to you about this off the air. I have something that I think you may be able to get involved in. I have a guy, I think he would love to speak to you. Maybe you could take him around, show him. Do you ever do that? Would you do something like that again?
Yeah. That's what I've done with Louis. That's what I did to Louis. I took him around.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that in present day. I think that would
be the new ADAs, the assistant district attorneys that aren't from Philadelphia. They'll say to me, I want to see what these places look like. I'm like, come on, I'll take you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have.
Well, I think if there's ever going to be any change, I think that's kind of where it starts. Just if these politicians just for 1 second would understand what it's like in these places, and going there and just seeing it is a nice start. So, Bill Hunter, a storied career. You don't got much left. What do you ever think, though? Do you think you'll be able to get through life without this? This is a big part of your life, I guess. That's kind of the final question.
It became a big part of my life. I didn't expect it to be like this. To be real honest with you, when I got on, I thought I'd be leaving in 4 years when I finished Temple. I figured, okay, I'm going to be gym teacher / wrestling coach. The wrestling coach thing came true. It just wasn't the gym teacher didn't come through. That's all.
So you kind of did it all, I guess. Okay, this is truly the final question. You have kids, but take me back. You're a little older. They're a little older. Yeah. But take me back to, let's say your kid nowadays, 15, 16. He says, "Hey, Dad, you got a son. Hey, I want to be a cop." What would you tell him today?
I'd support him.
You would.
Yep, I would.
Did your parents support you?
First got on the job. When I first got on the job, all the old timers were looking at me going, "Kid, this job ain't what it used to be." And I thought to myself, my God, I'm having so much fun. I look at these young guys now, and they're being told the same thing. And I get to talk to them because I'm in court with them, and they're telling me I'm having fun. So I'm thinking to myself, you know what? That hasn't changed.
Well, it's funny. I looked it up. When you joined the department, you're 90, 91-ish. Do you know how many murders there were in 1990 in Philadelphia?
No.
501.
What?
One of the only 500 years. We've had a couple recently, but it was a dangerous time. Bill, I know you may not believe this, and our listeners will laugh on this. If I could do it over, I'm 36 now. If I could do it over my early 20s, I would have joined the police department probably.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating career.
Yeah, my only regret's not getting on sooner. I didn't know this career would fit me so well. It fit me well.
Well, the department will miss you, I'm sure. But luckily, there's, I'm sure, a lot of good officers coming up behind you. Bill, it's really fascinating to have you on. I've been really wanting to speak to you for a while. I'm going to see what I can't do. Maybe I'll be the one to put that together. I'll get my people behind it and see if we can't do it on camera.
Yeah, I would definitely do it, but I would want to meet with him.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I would want to sit down with him.
I got a guy that I know. He's a big YouTube guy. I think he would be perfect for this. So maybe we'll see if we can't figure that out. Bill Hunter, everybody go grab the book, Surviving the Badlands. Really a look into one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city of Philadelphia, both then and now. And you know, I'm sure we'll see you again. Thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Jeff. My pleasure.
And we'll talk to you all again soon. Bill, hang on. I'll talk to you before we hang up here. Everybody have a great day. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week here on The Sit Down.